Chris? Good evening, and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of Bella Vista for Monday, the 24th of June. Will you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do a roll call of the council. Councilmember Wozniak?
Here.
Lloyd?
Yes.
Flynn?
Here.
Fowler?
Here.
Burke?
Here.
Wilms?
Here.
All present.
Okay, we'll move into citizen input. Each person speaking this evening will have 3 minutes to address the council, and we'll start with Ms. McKinney.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. I'm here on behalf of my older brother, who is executor of the Julianne McKinney estate, and then I am short. Is that better? I'm Mary Jane McKinney, and I'm here on behalf of my brother, Tom McKinney, who's the executor of the Julianne McKinney, Paisley McKinney estate. And then you requested a demolition or deconstruction plan for the Blackwell cabin. So my brother is traveling, and he has given Mr. Tapp an email that I'm to speak on behalf of us. The demolition or deconstruction plan, we didn't have a model to go by, but that was the only one that was requested. So Tom submitted something for Mr. Tapp to look at. And then on the Paisley, what we call the Paisley cabin, I'm sorry, it's the northern property. I'm going to have to get used to the addresses. I've spoken with and brought in for you the Bella Vista Museum and the blueprints that were construction of the cabins. There are some measurements, but if you would think of it as a pre-constructed mobile home, they're on the wall of the Bella Vista Museum, and the Paisley cabin reconstruction is by those blueprints by the original architect, Roy Cunningham. And in speaking with Tom Marr and Ralph Wilcox with the Arkansas Historical Society, they're ready to approve that plan for its original view, which was publicized in Bella Vista marketing materials. And it will have a $5,000 to $25,000 tax credit. Tom is not here, even though I'm speaking on behalf of the estate, so I don't know his time frame. They kind of left me just to be here by myself, but that is what I can speak on in 3 minutes. Tom did say you asked about the floor joists and underpinnings. So the floor joists, he purposely put tarps down to protect the floor joists. He has been under to look at the underpinnings, which no one, as far as we know, has actually gone behind and officially architecturally looked at the underpinnings, except Mr. Gore, who we had the thousands of dollars of architectural engineering plans drawn up, and they are secure. The plans are no different than what I brought on my phone from the Branson cabins that are actually almost 3 times the weight of these cabins and 3 times the size. We propose to use the deconstruction material from the Blackwell cabin to help renovate the Paisley cabin, and will be true to the original construction, including the lattice work along the outside and along the top. The names of the cabins are still on the cabins. We're always afraid they're going to get stolen and vandalized, just like has happened through the years. But I was caring for my mom and my dad, and they lived over 10 years. So we're trying to do the best we can, and we just ask that you accept the demolition or deconstruction plan. And I will continue to work with you. Hopefully Tom will join me on the renovation of the Paisley cabin.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is it Deb Darkin or Dakin? Dakin. Dakin, my apologies.
I'm
I've never spoken before city council members before, so I'm a little bit nervous, okay?
Oh, you'll be fine.
Good evening. My name is Deb Dakin, and I live on Penwith Lane. When we moved here from northern Iowa 3 years ago, our real estate agent told us that there were lots of POA regulations that we needed to be educated on, and that the POA would have fees associated with just about everything we needed to do. And so we educated ourselves, we thought, and we found out that there's a city, there's a POA and an ACC, and they all have different roles. And we're still kind of confused by some of them. One of the publications came with this handout flyer that I thought made it pretty clear. The city is responsible for matters of safety, including animals at large, the library, streets, and trash collection. The POA, in my view, is basically a Parks and Rec board. And the ACC is making sure that we don't have lavender houses and trashy yards. I still don't understand the need for some of the permits we need to get to keep our houses and our yards looking nice, but that's Bella Vista. Now we have the situation of a play set in a front yard, and Facebook is all abuzz about it. And as a result of that, I contacted Mr. Yaki and inquired who he got the letter from and how the entity became involved. It came from the city. And I said, the city? I thought it was an ACC thing. I thought looking nice was an ACC thing. Or does the ACC sick the city on residents who are violating the ACC things and then gets the POA to turn off their water? So I did some research and discovered that play equipment in front yards is both city and ACC. I have numerous questions for I almost said you guys.
That's all right.
Okay. Why is there a duplication of, and I don't expect you to answer these, I just want you to think about them. Why is there a duplication of regulations? Mm-hmm. Why was there no letter when Mr. Yaki had the old rickety in poor repair swing set, and then he improves it and he gets the letter? I don't know about you, but the message I'm getting is he should have let it deteriorate and he shouldn't have done anything to improve his yard. Is this the example that we want for the families of BV? I don't think so. We own the lot next to our residence. We have 2 lots. If I put up a swing set in the adjoining lot and there was nothing on there but rocks, leaves, trees, and the swing set, would that be in violation? Everybody would be able to see it. What difference does it make if there's a house on the lot or not? If I lived on a lot that was a corner lot, and is that my 3 minutes?
Believe it or not,
Lordy.
yes.
I am so sorry.
No, that's all right.
Take a second.
Okay.
Wrap it up. Yeah.
If I lived on a corner lot and I had a swing set on my side yard and everybody that drove by could see that swing set, would that be a violation? What difference does it make? Who's doing the policing of these regulations? Do we have hired people who are monitoring the yards and streets and the environment of Bella Vista? If so, why is it when I drove here tonight, I saw and I don't want you to go looking for these people, okay, I don't want you. I saw a swing set hanging from a tree in a front yard. I saw, I don't know how many basketball hoops in driveways. I saw hammocks hanging in front yards, and I saw a trampoline in the driveway. Just tonight. Don't get me started on garbage can placements. I personally think we have this occurring because people of Bella Vista enjoy being outdoors. And frankly, their neighbors don't mind it. They like being outdoors to relax. They like being outdoors to participate in the activities. Neighbors don't mind it. And finally, the other thing I want to point out is the school board where I taught would get together once a year and they would review all of their policies. And they would make changes as they perceive needed. I'm not telling you how to do your job, but I wonder, do you think perhaps it's time to sit down with the POA and the ACC and do a thorough examination of what's on the books? Look at the overlaps, find out what needs to be updated or eliminated. I think if you were to do that and you were to table this whole thing, you'd be supported by the people of Bella Vista in general. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ron Stratton?
Good evening. I'm Ron Stratton. I've been a property owner here for 13 years and a resident for 11 years. Done a fair amount of community service here, including one term on the POA board and 1 year as chair of the POA board. That year was largely occupied with addressing the tough realities of our flooding valley, so it was a memorable year. On May 14th, I sent a letter to the mayor, all the city council members, and to the POA board regarding the Trafalgar Road fire. And I did get an acknowledgement from Mr. Flynn that he received it. Other than that, I didn't get a response. As background and just general perspective, in 2007, Bella Vista incorporated as a city, and the POA turned over to the city $4.3 million in net annual expenses for streets, police, and fire. Those were previously operated by the POA. That $4.3 million has grown now to an annual budget of around $20 million. And from that, we get a lot more services than we previously did. So we as property owners, through our property taxes and other taxes, pay in good faith. They've been raised a number of times. We pay in good faith around $20 million a year for streets, police, and fire protection. In addition, and quite separately, we pay through our assessments $8 million a year in good faith to be used for parks and golf courses and clubhouses and playgrounds and all of these amenities that make Bella Vista so attractive and so valuable and so useful for all of us. So we had and I understand this was a very tough situation, and I know several of you personally, and I know you to be honorable, honest people. I know you to want to do the right thing in this situation, and it was unusual. But as a general agreement, those of us in Bella Vista pay, in good faith, $20 million a year for police and fire and streets, and that organization allowed a fire to burn for a year with no action. So ultimately the POA, who employ golf instructors and lifeguards and bartenders and greenskeepers but have no firefighting resources, no expertise, no funding for firefighting at all, felt compelled to divert $4 million that we paid in good faith for golf courses and swimming pools, etc., that now is not being used for that and diminishes the value of what we paid for in good faith. Now, one could argue that this was admirable or even noble by the POA board and management. And I'm happy they stepped up and did it. It was for the good of the community. It had to be done after a year. But one could also argue that it was a misappropriation, an improper diversion of funds paid in good faith by us for a very different purpose. In either case, they were compelled to do it as a result of the inaction of the organization that is clearly responsible for fire protection. City of Bella Vista. To me, this is an alarming betrayal of public trust. Now, before this meeting, Peter approached me and tried to explain that while it was legal for the POA to spend $4 million to extinguish the fire, it was illegal for the city, who has all the firefighting funding where we put firefighting in, to do so. How does that make any sense? He said the city never owned and operated the stump dump. Well, I don't think the city of New York ever owned and operated the Twin Towers either. I mean, Doug, if your house catches on fire because a firecracker hits it or you do something dumb in the kitchen, the city never owned and operated it. Does that mean they're not compelled to come? We shouldn't expect them to put out the fire? How does it make any sense? We have two organizations in this community to serve us well, and the delineation of responsibility is very clear. And both should work very well and effectively together to do that. And I think all of you can see the way this has happened is wrong. This money should be done for the attractiveness of Bella Vista. So I'm here tonight on behalf of myself and all the property owners to ask you to make the POA whole for the resources that we paid in good faith to support the amenities that make this community attractive and beautiful. But were diverted instead to extinguish a fire, while the firefighting resources did nothing. Now, this council is proposing a new multi-million-dollar police station, and I'm all for progress, and I hope to see it happen. But the first priority has to be for the city of Bella Vista to restore the public trust. We pay $20 million a year in good faith for streets, police, and fire protection. I would like to have your commitment this evening that you will do that. And I know you want to do the right thing. If not, I understand you have to consider these things. And if not, I will be raising awareness. I think the people in Bella Vista should comprehend this in the common sense way that began in 2007 and the way it is right now. I have every confidence you'll do the right things, that you will make this right, and our community that we all love will continue to prosper. And I look forward to seeing this committee rebuild the public trust. Thank you.
Okay. Council, just so you know, I did speak to Mr. Stratton prior to. It is illegal for a city to take taxpayer dollars and give those taxpayer dollars to a private company. It cannot be done. The POA on their own elected to stand up and put out the fire. The city did not ask them. In fact, we had worked with the state and secured $20 million. And Ron, you've had your 3 minutes. Let me have mine, please. No, you can respond afterwards face to face with me. We secured the $20 million, and ADEQ was put in charge of putting out the fire by the governor. They spent over $700,000 putting in weirs and new roads. And then the POA stood up and said, we will put out the fire. As far as I know, nobody asked them. Certainly the city did not. So I just want to make it very, very clear that the city has been working very hard with the EPA, ADEQ, and folks in the Senate and in the House down at the state level and at the national level. And we'll just call it quits at that. Matt? No, Ron.
If I could ask one question?
Go ahead.
So my question
This is not a debating society, okay?
Okay, just one simple question. My question would be, you said that you didn't ask the POA to put out the fire, that they just simply did so voluntarily.
Mm-hmm.
So they just stepped up and did it, perhaps despite your wishes that they should. Well, my question would be, how long should they have waited? So 1 year was, after 1 year was too quick, was what, 2 years or 3 years or 4 years? How long would it be reasonable before they say somebody has to step up and take responsibility and do something?
Frankly,
what do you
Ron,
think is a reasonable time?
Frankly, Ron, if they were able to step up and say that they would have done it on May the 2nd, they should have stepped up in September and said that it's our problem and we will fix it.
So the
Please let me carry on. I'm not going to debate with you. Okay? I answered your question. Matt?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Last month, I approached you about making an exception in the playground ordinances imposed by the city. I return tonight to reiterate my concern with this ordinance and the changing demographics of the city it affects. I'm not asking permission to add any permanent addition to anyone's front yard. Child's play equipment is by definition temporary, and as such should not be categorized in the same way as permanent structures. I'd like to remind you I'm not coming as a lone individual adversely affected by this ordinance. I've had the opportunity to meet many others over this past month. There's also the polling data I shared with you last month with nearly 1,000 participants showing that 88% of your constituents were in favor of changing this ordinance. I'm here to remind you, you were elected to enact the will of the people. That will has been made clear in regards to this issue. To ignore this data and to remain inactive due to existing ACC rules is not acceptable. I understand the difficulties of your position when there's a second governing body presiding over the personal property of Bella Vista residents. This, however, should not be your primary concern. You and your professional roles as members of this council have a singular obligation to those who have elected you as representatives. You're not subject to the rule of the ACC, but rather to the will of your constituency. Myself and others will do our due diligence to bring about change with the ACC. That's our duty. It's your duty to acknowledge the desires of this city and attempt to accommodate us to the best of your abilities. Please do not be negligent in this. Please choose to do the right thing, the will of the people, what you're elected to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I want to assure you that we are willing to work with you and our friends over at the ACC. So if you want to pull something together and we can sit down and chat with them as well as ourselves, happy to do so.
I intend to start work with the ACC this week.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Melissa, and I'm sorry I can't see the last name. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Melissa Branham. I moved here about 17 years ago. I moved here in my 20-ishes, and I had a 2-year-old on my hip. I just gotten out of the Army. I just gotten out of a marriage. I just gotten out of bankruptcy court. I came to work at Walmart home office. And one of the very first things I did when I got my rental on Endon Circle was buy a swing set. And I put it up, and my son played on it. My parents came out within a year. I was a homeowner on Worcester Drive, and we moved the swing set over there. And a few years ago, I moved over to Basildon Circle, and now I live on the west side. But my point was, when I saw Matt's post and I started thinking about it, is the people that are really impacted aren't here. They're working their second job because their kids can't afford anything else. They're not taking their kids to Atlantis. They, take them to the supermarket to ride the little quarter rides. And I was that person. And I've lived here so long now, and I plan on staying here. And I want to see our community between the city and the POA figuring out how to take some of these antiquated things and be more thoughtful in the way that they're worded, reasonable and respectful, because every child in this community belongs to all of us, as does every elderly person, and we have to work together to find some solutions that help not just the people who, are making what we pay in taxes. So thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you. Sandy Fosdick?
Hi, I'm Sandy Fosdick, 37 Stonehaven Drive. I've been a risk manager for an insurance company for 40 years, and I live on the west side, but today I happen to be on the east side, and I could not believe what I saw. I cannot believe that, I don't know if it was the city or the POA has allowed these bike trail jumps to be put next to the road on Houston. And then on Commonwealth, they're next to the road, and they're actually between, next to a golf course. I don't get it. I'll give you some free advice. I really think those should be removed. They're liability bombs just waiting to go off. And I'm afraid the residents are going to pay for it, and then I'm afraid they're going to come after the city because they've allowed it. And from what I understand, there was going to be a tunnel on Highlands Boulevard, and that can no longer be there because of fiber optics. And now there's going to be a crossing. Cars come down Highland Boulevard because it's a steep hill at, I swear, 50 miles an hour. Somebody's going to get killed. And a little thing we do in the insurance business is risk reduction. Why can't they just stay on the east side of Highlands Boulevard? Why do they have to cross over? There's a very small loop of land that they're trying to get to on the other side, and it's not necessary. If they stay on the east side, nobody has to cross the road. We're not putting lives at risk. So I don't know if it's the city I should be talking to or the POA. If it's not you guys, or if I'm supposed to go directly to the Northwest Trailblazers, I'd be glad to do it. But if I get into trouble because I've hit somebody, I'm coming after everybody. So, just a little free advice.
No, appreciate it. Thank you. Lynn Golbeck?
This is my first time here also. I'm Lynn Golbeck, and I've been here 13 years, and I have a home on 7 Acock Lane off of Walney, and I also stay a lot at Quantock Hills with Don Robinson. I notice a lot of things happen in this area that I retired 2 years ago from Springdale, worked as a bill collector and credit, and I was in Springdale a long time. I walked trails there. I did a lot where I didn't really see everything that I see here now that I'm here in Bella Vista, because I'm home a lot more. And I have a lot that overlooks Bollington. Bollington is a low-maintenance road. I've seen crime since day one, since I moved in my home on 7 Acock Lane, and the lot that we're clearing, it's just a catch-all for anything bad. And when we clear, we see RVs back there, we see cars burned by stolen cars, actually, even before y'all's time. I reported in the middle of the night there was explosions. Got by my binoculars. That was 2 Missouri guys stole a girlfriend's car, and it was burning. And it would have burned my house down if I hadn't gotten up in the middle of the night, and a lot of other homes. And Captain Cook came and thanked me for actually waking up to the explosions and taking action. I'm still taking action about this area. The trails are going right down below me. They actually were this far from my surveyed land. I had to get with Aaron Rushing. I had to have everything moved. In fact, we had to go down there. Didn't even know to the extent of danger we were in, because there's traps and bullets, and I found arrows on my lot, sidewinders, which makes it very dangerous to go get your mail or be on your own property, for that matter. I've talked about this to people, and I feel endangered being on my streets. There's bullets. They just don't go just where any direction people shoot. I report this quite often to the police. I feel endangered by other things that have happened to me on my street as of recent. I've been to the mayor, talk about it. Mm-hmm. I was chased. I was almost rammed in my car. 2 guys on top of a white car and 3 others in it. Seemed like a gang to me. And I barely got in Don's house, and he tried to follow him. 4 cars tried to find him, police. And I'm lucky to be here talking tonight. I really am. And we are supposed to be the #1 safest city in Arkansas. I was in Springdale, and I didn't see this happen to me for those 11 years I worked there. And I also lived in Tulsa, Minneapolis, and my father-in-law was the chief of police. The reason I bring him his attention is because I want safety first. We've been down there where we've actually had a policeman, and I know Randy, and I know Bob Walker. They gave me their personal phone numbers.
Those are lake rangers, right? They're
Lake
not
Rangers,
police.
correct. But I've seen a policeman and a lake ranger trying to get somebody off the property, and it was a struggle. And we had to go down by the dock to stay away from. You actually go the other direction while we're sitting there with our dog. We try to go down and enjoy parks that we pay for. How much do we pay? We figured out $240 a month between Don and I. We'd like 10 minutes of peace and tranquility and safety at the parks, and they're just occupied by anything and everything, and so is that area. I would really like to know that what we pay for, we can enjoy. I don't want to be making phone calls. I want to have safety. I did the crime watch. We drove these streets. I put my efforts into this. I still am. I'm here kind of still shaky from the situation I went through not too long ago. I'm really happy to be here talking about it, but this is not the way it should be here. And then there's a trampoline that's right next to my bedroom window, my next door neighbor, only neighbor I have.
Okay, try
They
and
had-
wrap it up, please, Lynn. Okay.
And there was a basketball freestanding there right in front of my mailbox. I had to call. They moved the basketball thing in an area in the right of way. It's still there, nothing's been done. I went to Teresa today, and she's gonna try to come out. There's people that have no permits.
That's Teresa at the ACC?
Uh-huh, yes, I did. I'm trying to get to the right people. Things don't get done. And I really want to see something happen where things change a little bit so we can have an environment that we pay for, we can enjoy. That's all I'm
Good.
saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to
Okay, we'll move on with the approval of the minutes of the May 20th, 2019 City Council meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second. Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Willems,
Yes.
Bork,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Thank you. Finance Director Elson has published the April financial reports and sent them out to you. I would remind you that she is available for comment. I know that Councilmember Burke has been in speaking to her a number of times this month, and I think, Doug, you've been in as well. So she's very receptive if you would like to sit down. If any of you are looking for copies of our monthly financial statements, just let us know. We'll be more than happy to supply it to you. Okay, Councilmember Fowler, you wish to entertain something?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules, add a new business on the agenda.
Second.
It's this. You have to state what it is.
The one you get approving the Bella Vista Advertising Promotion Commission's appointment of Jane Lowe.
Yes.
As an at-large commissioner for the unexpired term of the position vacated by Paula Sanders.
Yep.
A resolution.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Okay, roll call vote.
so you're voting on suspending the rules.
It'll be added at the end of the agenda.
Yep. Councilmember Lloyd,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Okay, so Doug will put that on the end.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
It'll be item E.
I'm sorry?
Item E.
Yes, item E. And there's no need to have a motion to suspend rules for ordinances. We're only dealing with resolutions this evening. The first resolution is old business. It's a resolution ordering the raising and removal of a dilapidated and unsafe structure owned by Richard P. McKinney et al. At 9386 Suitsas Drive in the city of Bella Vista. In your packet, you should have received a note to Doug Tapp from Mr. McKinney, actually from Tom McKinney, outlining their plans to actually deconstruct the cabin. They are asking that we give them time up to and including, I believe, the weekend of Labor Day, when they are saying that they will have it completed. They will strive to complete the project before that time, but of course, weather may interfere with that plan. So if you approve this resolution as it reads now, our ordinance gives the property owner 30 days. Okay? Now, obviously, they're asking for more than 30 days. If you would like to give them the opportunity up to Labor Day, then we would have to table it until the August meeting so that we would bring it back up again, assess the need, so that if they don't meet the deadline of Labor Day, then we already have a resolution that's passed and we can go in 30 days after the August meeting and take it down. Okay, everybody understand the two options? Okay, let's open it up then for discussion.
Mayor Christie?
Sir.
I do follow that, and I understand that a plan was put forward was that for 9386?
It is.
It is.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So it's for 9386, which is agenda item B. Am I correct about that?
86
No.
is
The one you're talking about now is 9386.
And is that the one they submitted the plan for?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So we did not get a plan for the other one?
Right.
No, what
Okay.
we did get,
Well, let's not confuse these two.
I don't want to confuse them either, Jason, and really the reason I brought that up was because I really feel like, and this may be just the way I'm thinking about it, the one that didn't have a plan is kind of the easier one for me to act on tonight. There was no plan submitted for it whatsoever.
So
And
we did-
I feel like that one is pretty clear in my mind what I'm going to support doing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Tom McKinney sent an email to Mr. Tapp dated Thursday, June the 20th, and said, in response to, if you remember at the work session, we raised this point, and we asked Mr. Tapp to go back to the family and ask, well, what about the other cabin?
Right.
And Mr. McKinney came back and said, if you don't mind, we would like to see this deconstruction plan is okay with the city of Bella Vista, and then we would look at the Paisley cabin, which the address is 9390. And then I understand from talking to Ms. McKinney tonight, they have decided that they would like to build or rebuild 9390 using the wood salvaged from 9386. And I believe she has given some plans here. I don't think most of us have had a chance to read it, and I don't think, Doug, I don't think you've seen it either. Okay? So, no plan in the first place. Said they wanted to see if their deconstruction plan on the first one was okay before they attacked the second one. And now, this evening, they have stated that they really want to rebuild the second one. So we'll get to the second one in a minute. So let's go back to the first one again, okay? This is the one where they have given us a deconstruction plan and asked for time up to and including Labor Day. So discussion. John?
Well, what's happened with these so far is, since I've been on council, which is 4.5 years, is the city has messed around with these people forever before they get to us, no matter who they are. It's not just these individuals, anyone. Then the people come and say something sympathetic, and then council feels bad and gives them more time. And then after the more time times 10 has passed, they've never come through. No one's ever come through. I've never seen it happen. And this is slightly on topic and off topic. As to the second one, she mentioned tonight that they want to rebuild the Paisley cabin, but she didn't know anything about a timeline.
Correct. Correct.
So,
I'm not the executor.
It's okay, Mary.
so as to this first one, I think we should go ahead and pass the resolution and give them 30 days to get whatever wood they want, or.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, it's been way too long. These cabins came up for conversation right after I was first seated on the council. And I understand, you know, you had your mother you had to deal with and things like that, but it's just time. It's time to get this done. You know, they're dilapidated, they're unsafe, they continue to deteriorate. I don't understand really how anything is salvageable from either one of the cabins. I've been up there multiple times. They're unsafe, and I agree with Councilman Flynn. 30 days, and it's time to get it done.
Okay. Steve?
I would only add that I think we were really clear last time that there was so much talk. We were done with the talk. We needed to see action. What we got was a nominal plan at best. I drove by the properties again today to look at them to make sure that what my eyes were telling me is really what I've seen before out there. And the property owners in this case have neglected this property not for a little while, not for 30 days or 90 days, but for years. We're not talking about grass growing high. We're talking about the roof caving in, timbers rotten to the core. And there seems to be no action behind the words of these property owners. And I believe that the property owners in this case have demonstrated demolition by neglect. This is the last thing the city wants to be involved in. We are not in the business, we are not in the business of knocking down properties. It's created a very unsafe situation for anybody in and around that area of Bella Vista.
I did rope it off,
Okay,
and I,
Ms. McKinney? Okay, it was roped off by ourselves too, many years ago. I've been doing this for almost 5 years now. Okay.
my brothers, I almost.
Is there anybody else who would like to?
I would just agree with Steve. I've renovated a lot of houses that were 150 to 170 years old, and I sympathize with the folks, but it's, our community development department has spent many, many, many hours over years dealing with this, and it's time. Past time, excuse me.
Anyone else? Larry?
I would have to concur with Alderman Rourke about the assessment of the cabin's condition. I've been up there several times. They are and have been in a state of disrepair for an extended period of time, showing lack of interest by the owners. They may have a sentimental value, and I understand that. I really do. The reality is that little has been done since we visited this issue in May. In fact, I can't visually see any action taken out there except possibly the addition of some caution tape. It would seem that if they were sincere about salvage, that they would have been busy after our last meeting starting to work on salvaging materials that needed to be salvaged. It's not a new subject for the property owners. This matter was sent out to them many times over the past several years, and certainly the fact that it was placed on the agenda was another reminder to them that this issue was coming up for final consideration. So I tend to support the thoughts of the other council members.
Okay. Jim?
And you, depending how resolution number 2 goes, you still got 30 days to clean it up and get what you want. You've had 30 days between last time and the start. Now you got 30 days from today to when this takes effect. So you've got time, and you've had the opportunity. So.
Okay. No. Okay. All righty, so I have read the resolution.
Need a motion? A
I
second?
need a motion and a second.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we move forward with resolution R2019.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, I'm sorry.
Okay, second?
I have a question of procedure. Since these were tabled items, do we have to remove them from the table?
No,
No.
they came back automatically tonight.
I'll second.
Okay.
Mayor Christian, one more comment if we could before we vote on this.
Yes.
I just wanted to call out, not everybody would have been here for the last city council meeting. There are volumes of information that the city council has reviewed on the history of this property and what it's gone through and all of the requests that have gone through. It is quite a volume of attempts on the part of the city to get the property in safe condition. And in our last meeting, we had a public hearing on this, and we heard from multiple members of this family at no limitation whatsoever on their ability to address the council. And it went on for quite some time. So it's not that the property owners are not being heard. The public input hearing for these properties was held in the last month's meeting, not tonight. So we're just following up on a tabled item tonight, and there was ample opportunity for explanation on the part of the property owners in the previous meeting.
Okay. Wayne?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve that resolution. Councilmember Flynn,
Yes.
Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke?
Yes.
Carried, 6-0.
Okay, the second resolution pertaining to old business then is the other cabin. It's a resolution ordering the raising and removal of a dilapidated and unsafe structure owned by Julia Ann McKinney at 9390 Suits Us Drive in the city of Bella Vista. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, a destruction plan was not submitted, and instead Tom McKinney sent us an email saying that he'd like to see what happens with the first one, and then start to work on the second one. And then this evening we were told that no, we actually want to take lumber from the first one and rebuild the second one. And I'm not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination. Larry, you are, but I would suspect that would be quite a task. But nevertheless, discussion. Linda?
I would agree, yes, it would be quite a task, and the other issue at hand is it would be well nigh impossible to get a septic there, so rebuilding a house that could not be occupied just seems to not make sense in this particular context.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I'm not a building expert, but I think it's obvious it'd be cheaper to build from scratch than to try to rehabilitate what little's left of that cabin.
Okay. Anyone else?
So, the first one had, 30 days for the owners to do whatever it is that they need to do or want to do with that
There's
property.
30 days for this one, too.
Right. So how long after that period before the city would move to raise the house?
Doug, you'd have to go to bid in that 30-day period?
So you go to bid?
Yep. And then depending on the scheduling with the company that wins, it could be longer than 30 days.
The owner has the 30 days to do it, and
Right.
and certainly they could do it, clear it off, and it would be done. There'd be nothing left to do. They're going to be ordered to do that if you approve this. After the 30 days, if they don't, then the city's right to kick in. The city's right to do it kicks in at that point.
Anything else? Okay, yes?
I don't know. I'm just going to ask a question. So 30 days, then we have to go to bid on one. I think it would probably be really inefficient for the city to bid one and then at a later date bid the other one. I'm not really necessarily in favor of that at all.
Well, no.
It would only have to be competitively bid if it was estimated to cost more than $20,000 to knock it down. It may not cost that, so I think it might not literally have to go to a competitive bid.
Okay.
It's just going to have to be procured by the city at that point.
Okay, so I personally, I do not see any way that 9390 can be rebuilt to anything of its former state. I just don't. And again, I'm not an engineer either, but I've been up there several times. Because the one is going to be, 30 days and then it's going to be torn down raised after that, if there's still a structure standing, unless you guys have done something with it in that time. I might be willing to entertain an opportunity for you guys to bring back a solid set of plans in 30 days and show us what you're going to do with it. And I'm telling you, this has to be buttoned up, and there has to be a timeline. Now, no one else here may be willing to entertain anything like that. I don't know. I'm just giving you guys every benefit of the doubt that I possibly can. I don't think it can be done, quite frankly, but I'll let anybody else respond to that. I don't know if anybody else would be open to that option or not.
Anybody? Linda?
Well, I think we made it clear at the last meeting that such a plan was to be brought forward at this meeting, and that hasn't happened.
Well, that was for raising. Now they're talking about rebuilding, with material from the house is going to be torn down. So
They mentioned that at the last meeting, they were going to use one for the other, but they still haven't fulfilled their obligation.
John?
I think anybody who was even vaguely serious with such a dire consequence in front of them would have put something significant in our hands by now. That makes the chances even less of anything actually happening.
Okay. Okay.
I guess based on the record, it looks as though our dialogue with the owners began back in 2015. So it's not something that started at the beginning of this year or even last year. It goes back over 4 years from when the first contacts were made about the conditions of the building. And we've been, if someone got injured there, we may be remiss or called to be remiss in our duties of protecting the public as well. Even though, yep, someone going on the property would be trespass, but nonetheless, that could happen. It could even happen when you're doing the salvaging work because of the materials being of a poor structural condition, rotting or deteriorated from a weather exposure. So this is not something that's happened overnight. It's not something new to the property owners about the issues with the properties. The plan, we don't have a plan for this particular property, as I understand. We have a plan for salvage or something is not on the Paisley, it's on the Blackwell that was submitted.
I gave the blueprints to Mr. Dirksen, they're on
Yeah,
the table.
they're here.
But nobody's seen them. We just got it tonight.
Yeah.
They're the original.
But they're the
blueprints.
original blueprints. They're nothing to do with a reconstruction.
Well, that's what we have to use,
Yeah.
to use the historical
So,
Okay.
registry credit, and those were from the museum, so I had to go get them from the
Okay, so here are your options. You can pass it the way it is, or you can turn it down. Doug, if you want to amend and ask for a plan, we can do that, or you can table it till July.
Yeah. No, I'm ready to move forward.
Okay?
I thought, I didn't know what the plans were, if they're just pulled from the original cabin. There's
They
not
are.
anything that's been developed that's new, you know, to today's
That's what it
specs
is.
and standards,
The
then,
original.
no.
We went through 5 permits, and I spent over $6,000 to $7,000, just to remind the group that's here today, who didn't read the minutes
Okay.
of the last meeting.
All right.
From last.
So I have read it. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a seconder?
second.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, Wayne.
Okay. Roll call vote. Councilmember Lloyd,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Okay, moving into new business, a resolution approving the mayor's appointments of Cheryl Hall, Mike Abb, and Chuck Woods to positions on the Tree Advisory Board for 3-year terms ending May the 1st, 2022. Is there any discussion? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Okay, the next resolution is approving a change order number 1 to a contract with Centerpoint Contractors in the amount of $42,948 for construction of additional trail crossings in lieu of tunnels as part of the Bella Vista Trail Expansion Project. I would point out to you that the next resolution is also part of this as well. As was mentioned earlier, there are actually 2 tunnels where there are fiber optics, and it would cost millions to move. And so the contractor and Trailblazers is asking that they do the surface crossings as opposed to tunnels. But these 2 are linked together, but we'll address the first one, which is the money required for the additional trail crossings in lieu of tunnels. Is there any discussion at all?
Mayor, only to point out that the net of the 2 is a decrease in the cost of the project by roughly $140,000.
It's $139,070.01.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I had just a question.
Yes.
You know, somebody, I think one of the councilmen has mentioned this before, and somebody brought up tonight about, you know, the safety issues with the above-ground crossing. And you know, are we sure these are as good as we, I'm sure we have to go above rather than underneath. I'm convinced of that. It's too bad because I love the safety aspect of the underneath. But are we confident that, Aaron and the other groups are putting them in as best a situation as they can?
What I'd like to do is invite Aaron to come back to the work session. Just so you know, Sandy, we actually had the executive director of Trailblazers at our work session a week ago to discuss the problems along Houston, Commonwealth, and also the above crossings. And I'd like to have him come back and discuss the solutions, because he was going to go out and meet with the contractors and go on site. So we can arrange that, and we'll have him back in July. Yes?
That was Daniel that was here last week.
Oh, that's right, it was Daniel. We'll
Not
ask.
Aaron.
In his
Yeah.
place, yeah.
I'd like for James to go out there and take a look at the Houston Road situation,
Okay.
and the one that comes across at the bottom of Reardon Hill.
Just to save, from a safety perspective, what you think. Sandy, we can talk afterwards if you don't mind.
Well,
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
well, we're mixing apples and oranges a little bit, though. This is the two Houston and Commonwealth are one issue. These are the two places
Correct.
on the
Correct.
west side where we had to put crossings instead of
Correct. But I,
tunnels.
Chief, we can talk afterwards. I think you were at the work session, so you know the areas that we were talking about. Okay. All right, so let's get back to the business here of this change order number 1. Is there any further discussion?
There is concern, anytime we're going to put in a new crossing, and when we're going to put in a crossing on a busy road especially, we should be very, very careful and protective of the traffic flows that are there. So if there is a way, given that there could be more conversation with the Trailblazers, who are really the point people for building the trails themselves and have an important role, therefore, in the city's responsibility for the road crossings, that we might table these until we've had that conversation with.
No, this is a monetary thing. This has nothing to do with the safety or the placement of trails.
Right, but I think in approving these changes to the plan, we're approving going from a tunnel to an above-ground crossing. I think a de facto approval is in the financing with regard to that.
I think we made it pretty clear to the gentleman from Trailblazers a week ago of the seriousness of this. These change orders have been sitting on my desk now for about 2 months, because I was waiting for the second one on the tunnels themselves. How much would the savings be?
Right. Well, through no fault of your own, there are all the information wasn't provided to the city for the city to, in order for the city to make a good decision about this. So it's not.
So I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
What I'm
So-
saying is, I feel like that we ought to make certain that before we approve a crossing above Highland Road, that all safety aspects of that have
Right.
been properly factored in.
And that's why I'd like them to come out next month.
Yes, and I would
Okay.
too, before we approve for the financial changes associated with that.
But there's going to have to be a level crossing somewhere.
Perhaps so, unless the
Unless
project
Sandy's
is-
right and you can keep it all on one side.
Perhaps, yes.
And that's what we need to discuss with them.
Exactly.
But the tunnels are not going to be built.
Fair enough. That tunnel is not going to be built, right?
And neither is the other one. There's 2 of them.
Okay. So those tunnels are not going to be built.
Right.
And happy to release those funds to whatever extent that has value without approving the additional funding associated with the above road crossings.
Okay.
So what would they do that might be any less safe than the other trail crossings we already have in
Well,
Bethesda?
short of rerouting the trails to another area, and I think the Trailblazers have tried to demonstrate that they have been responsive to citizen concerns and to city concerns. I'd like to give them an opportunity to see if there is some other solution that would not require us to build a crossing across another high-traffic road. That's all.
John?
Is the chief aware where these crossings are? And
I don't think they've actually pointed out where the crossings will finally end up being. We could certainly have that in hand for the next, because I don't think you've seen that, have you?
I've not seen that. I have talked to them about some crossings that they're open about, and they assured me with the engineers and the folks they brought out to make sure they're at the safest locations. The one in question was out by the streets department where they were gonna cross there, and I challenged one of their crossings, and they came back and showed me why it was in the correct spot, and I think I tend to agree with them, so I don't think they're doing this on a whim. Of course, I don't know, but it appears to have a pretty good process for finding the best crossings available.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear that there has been communication. I've advocated for a stronger relationship between the Trailblazers and the city, most especially with regard to road crossings. And I think in our last work session, one of the things that we had to express clearly to the representative that was there from the Trailblazers is you don't have carte blanche to go do and build rock structures in the road right-of-ways. You don't have carte blanche to do whatever it is that you want to do. You have to engage the city. You have to engage us from a safety point of view. You have to engage us from a traffic flow point of view. These are things that the city is the ultimate stakeholder in these projects, and we need to be at the table and have their full cooperation, and in some cases to have the power of approval for any of the crossings, any of the roads that are going to be where the traffic flow is going to be interrupted in any way. The city needs to have the power of approval on each and every one of those.
So this crosses the Highlands?
There's one Highlands and there's one on Cooper.
So I have a question. We have several crossings, multiple crossings on State Highway. Did we get
Yeah, state is approved.
RDOT approval on those?
Those have been approved. Okay, so options on this particular one. We can vote on it, or if I'm hearing correctly, Steve would like to table for a month so that we have an opportunity in the July work session to chat with Trailblazers. Of course, we'll chat with them before that as well. But so that when we all get together, they will hopefully have a plan and a response. Okay, do you want to make a motion, Steve, to table? And we'll see if it goes through.
I'd like to move to table this particular resolution
To the July meeting?
to the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll
Is there a
second.
seconder?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion, John?
Well, just to be clear, we're talking about the one that increases the cost
Correct.
by 42,000 because of two crossings.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, we'll have a vote.
Well, I'd say, if we're going to move to table this, then and I'm sure they will, then the Trailblazers, obviously, they're going to have to bring their detailed plan to the next work session and present it to the city council, so.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes?
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
carried. It's tabled.
Cassie, can you get in touch with Aaron, please, so we can have a chat? Okay. Okay, the next resolution is approving change order number 1 and number 2 to a contract with Crossland Heavy Contractors in the amount of minus $182,018.01 for deletion of part of the construction of 2 trail tunnels as part of the Bella Vista Trail expansion project. Discussion.
Well, I don't think this necessarily needs to be tabled. I'm sure they knocked themselves out trying to figure out
They
a
have.
way to still have tunnels.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty.
And the corridor where these two are being eliminated, is there any possibility of moving it one direction or the other and avoid the fiber optic issue?
No, not really.
It's too
Especially,
far?
yeah, especially at Cooper and almost 340. It's a huge underground structure. It would cost about $3 million to move it.
Well, you're talking about a structure, but if you can move it 10 feet, sometimes you clear the structure and avoid the issues.
Okay, do you know anything about fiber optic cable vaults?
the vaults?
I do, because I worked in telecommunications.
Okay.
You can't just simply dig another hole and put it in. It's a waterproof underground
Vault.
structure that is very, very expensive to move. It's very
Well,
expensive to put in.
And my point being is that if you move away from where that vault is, 200 feet or 300 feet or 100 feet, you then only need to deal with the cable issue if there is a material cable issue to deal with.
Okay, well, if you
Is
go
the only
one
question I
direction,
have.
you're going down into a hollow. If you go another one, you're going to end up at 340. If you go up the hill, you're going to hit bedrock.
So that means it would be an increased cost to put in the tunnel.
You would have to move the whole fiber optic facility in order to put the tunnel in, because where they're putting the tunnel in is the optimal place that they have decided where it should be. The fiber optics, look, the fiber optics out of a vault are like a spider.
I know.
Okay?
Come out.
It goes every which way. So you're going to hit it, and it's going to be very, very expensive.
Guess I've dealt with a lot of those, and we locate them and manage to work around them. The vault is a whole different story.
Well, unfortunately,
cables
what they're also
themselves is,
finding in some of the cases is that some of the utilities here didn't report when they actually put stuff in the ground. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised.
Mayor Christie, I'm not sure. I think B and C, I think these two resolutions are the yin and yang of each other, and I'm not sure that the Trailblazers would even want us to approve half of it and not the other half. I can't see any practical purpose for moving ahead with elimination of two tunnels. They may, if we tell them, if it turns out that the proposition of putting a crossing above the road is not one that the city is comfortable with, they may in fact find out, again, there's some other solution that they'd rather apply. So I'm not sure us doing half of this, one of the two resolutions, is really going to be any value to the Trailblazers anyway. I wonder if we shouldn't just go ahead and set this one aside as well.
Well, I know that they have looked at alternate places to put these tunnels, and they have not found anything in those areas that is applicable for them to do so. Remember, this is a financing resolution. I understand your position on the first one, but this second one is simply a change order. Okay?
Removing work from the contract agreement is what it does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just for letting them have their money back right now, and maybe they'll spend it in improving, the trail crossings across the roads. I don't know, but I'm not an engineer. If they say they can't build it, they already named it the 11 under. They're kind of committed to it. Now they're going to have to back out of that because now it's the 9 under.
9 under.
Yes.
Yep.
So they were fully committed to this, from the very get-go, and I guarantee you they are disappointed that they can't make this happen.
They are. Any further discussion? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Lloyd,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
No.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak.
Yes.
Carried 5-1.
Okay, the next resolution, expressing the intent of the City Council no longer to pursue purchase of a portion of the Centerton water system in accordance with the memorandum of understanding currently in place between the parties. Okay, so all of you understand what's going on here. For quite a few years, it started with the previous mayor. There were discussions between ourselves and Centerton to purchase, I'll call it a water spur, that starts at the intersection of Highway 72 and 279. It comes up 279 in Gravette, and then it enters into Bella Vista. It goes past the street department, down Rogers Road, down Highlands, cuts to the left. It pops up here. This whole area here is serviced by Centerton Water. It's not part of the POA. And then it goes over this way, and it comes up and it services Fire Station number 4, which is the one that we built. and opened up in July of 16. And then it also services the Village Bible Church, and then it stops. Now, the original thought was that with the opening of the bypass, there could be retail opportunities along that corridor, which may still be true. However, what we have discovered is that the pipes themselves are undersized. So we would have to swap out those pipes to a tune of roughly $2 million in order to increase the size of the pipe. So for example, you've heard us talking about putting a new police station possibly up by the street building. It would be on Centerton Water, but there's not enough pressure for sprinkling, and by law we have to sprinkle it. The same thing holds true with the street department. We would have had to have sprinkled that, but because it's not full of offices, it's got trucks and mechanics bays, you're able to separate it into square footages that don't require sprinkling as long as you put up firewalls. And putting up firewalls for the street department didn't impede their ability to be able to maintain good order and service. But you can't put up firewalls in the middle of a police station. And so what we did was we have approached CCI, Cooper Communities, asking for permission to use POA for sprinkling water only, and they have agreed. But what about other services and businesses that may come in, and once they find that they don't have the pressure for sprinkling, they may not come in, so then you're back to having to put in bigger pipes. We explored the possibility of getting loans, especially at the federal level, because there's a legal issue as well. If you have a loan, your water facility is protected, in this case by having Gravit come in and try and take it. We don't qualify for the loans. Is that right, Steve?
Correct.
So when we were down at the Municipal League 2 weeks ago, Councilmember Burke actually met with the financing people to see if, as a city, we would qualify for these federal loans. We do not, because we're not, or we would not be a rural water system. So why has it been hanging around so long? Gravit, I think it's 3 years ago now, took Centerton to court, saying that they should have the right of first refusal to purchase that spur because it goes through their city en route to Bella Vista. And I think it took about a year before we finally got a decision. And the court sided with Centerton. Last July, Gravit appealed. And now all the written appeals are finished. There's going to be a hearing date as yet is unknown. And then we don't know how long it will take the judge to make that decision. If Gravit loses once again, then they have the ability to go to Supreme Court. In the meantime, things have changed here, and it's over 3 years since I've been doing it, another 2 years when Frank was doing it. Last year, we did an in-depth resident survey. What do you want? And the top 3 things in the order, Cassie, it was police, fire, and streets. Okay. Nothing about buying a water system for $285,000 and then having $170,000 startup costs on top of that. We have put together a comprehensive 5-year capital improvement plan, which includes, for example, tearing down fire station number 3, while actually we would build a new fire station number 3 across the street before we tore the old one down. And Chief, that's about $2 million roughly. Okay, about the same cost as putting the pipes in the water system. The objective on the fire side for the long term is to get our ISO rating down to a 3. If you remember, it was at a 6. To put it in perspective, if you're in 10, you haven't got any firefighting capabilities at all. Most insurance companies, not all, use the ISO ratings to calculate fire insurance for residents. Over the past 4 years, we have done a lot of improvements on the fire side. ISO came in and dropped it from a 6 to a 4. The goal is to get it from a 4 to a 3 so that all of us will save more money on our fire insurance premiums. But if we have to put in larger pipes in order to accommodate the water system at the same cost as the fire station, well, you can see the dilemma. If we were a wealthy community with a large commercial tax base, such as some of our neighbors to the south, we may not, or we probably wouldn't be talking about this at all. But there's a problem, we don't have it. The other concern I have is there is a law that states that you cannot operate a water system at a loss. It has to be self-sustaining. Therefore, the 70-odd people that are on this at the moment would see a tremendous increase in their water rates. And frankly, I don't think that's fair. A lot of history. I could probably keep going on for about another 10 or 15 minutes, but it would probably bore you. But in a nutshell, that's the dilemma that we're facing. So we decided at the work session that we would put it on the table this evening for debate and vote. I will tell you that throughout this whole process, we have been very upfront and open with the City of Centerton's sewer and water department, and they're well aware that we're considering it this evening. Their executive director came to our work session last week and spoke to us. He understands the issues that we're faced with and how over time things have changed. We're becoming a very fast-growing community, perhaps not as fast as some of the others, but to see the building permits where they are today for infill, in other words, not new subdivisions, is astounding. And the population in 2010 census was 26,483, I think. It's well over 30,000 today, and it's growing. I don't want all of us to have the growth managing us. I want to manage the growth. You can see some of the other cities in the area where the growth has taken over, and they're scrambling to try and catch up. We're trying to do some forward thinking. Where can we take our money and put it to the best use for the residents so that we can stay ahead of the growth and be ready for it? And that's Peter talking. That's not necessarily reflecting everybody who's sitting up here. So I just wanted you to have an opportunity to understand the history and what's at stake here. So I have read the resolution, and now I will ask for comments. Who's first? John?
Well, we've all spent a lot of time studying this, and it's a difficult decision, difficult situation. In these type of situations, I try to go by two things. What's in the best interest of the citizens of Bella Vista, and what would the majority of citizens in Bella Vista want done? And there's so many costs with this and so many hurdles, and some of the benefits are so speculative. I think if we put this on the ballot and had you all vote on it, I think about 10% would vote yes and 90% no. And there's a couple reasons why. Okay, so if I spend our tax dollars and then we get this water, so now will I get water from the city and not from where I do now? And the answer is no, you'll still get water from the POA, and the rate will be either what it is now or something higher, like most things in life. And what about all those little holes in the city where they have no water and they can't get it and they're very frustrated to it? Oh, will I be able to get water? Well, no, you won't be, because that's thousands of feet away, and we can't afford to run a pipe clear across the city just for this little gap that has 4 people or maybe 1 potential business. So then last week, a couple weeks ago, we went down to Arkansas Municipal League, and one of the speakers spoke about city water systems.
And then it's,
He said that a water system has to have at least 10,000 customers to be viable. There's all kinds of water systems in Arkansas. Incidentally, POA has 14,000. There's all kinds of water systems in Arkansas that have 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 customers and can't make it. And a lot of them have, the thrust of this guy's speech was a lot of them outsourced it to somebody else to try and solve the problem. And that somebody else, an outside agency, ran it for them and did one of two things. Either they ran it into the ground, or else they jacked everybody's rates way up and improved it. So here we are, the water system's going to have 74 customers and potential for a few more, and you're supposed to have 10,000 be viable. So I just think it's, I see what we were trying to do when we pursued it, but I just think it's better to cut our losses now, and we're just kidding ourselves if we delay a few months. We're going to end up doing the same thing, only have had more expenses. So that's my thoughts.
okay. Anybody else, Linda?
Well, I want to respond to what John said. The speaker down at the Municipal League also pointed out that 71% of the water systems in the state of Arkansas have less than 2,500 customers. And John mentioned about it getting complicated and very involved, and I agree with that. If Cooper had stopped development of Bella Vista because it was involved and complicated, none of us would be here. And my concern is that if we choose not to move forward with the purchase of this water company, that we are going to very definitely be shooting ourselves in the foot, because there will then be properties that are not Cooper-owned, which cannot be developed on a commercial basis and providing us with the future sales tax revenue that we urgently need in this city. So I just am concerned that we'd get 4 or 5 years down the road and said, boy, did we screw that up.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, so complicated topic, absolutely no doubt. It's such a multifaceted problem, situation. Right now, I mean, we're boxed in as a city as far as, sales and use tax revenue is concerned. I've lived here for 12 years, and we have, I say, virtually no commercial growth. I don't know if we've had any commercial growth. It's very nominal, whatever we have had. And, we're in a spot, it looks like, from a city standpoint, which, we have like $2 million of city sales and use tax we collect a year, give or take. And this year, it looks like we're probably going to land on that as well. But we don't have the movie theater. Harps is shut down right now. So I don't know if we'll reach 2 million or not. I think we're just about even for the year so far through April. County sales tax, it's not growing at a pace that it has been growing at. So I'm concerned about both of those. We have, and so I'll go on a little bit further, property taxes. Whenever we have all this residential development taking place. Last year, we had 262 housing permits issued. In property tax collection and personal property taxes, and I based the personal property taxes on about $30,000 per household, give or take. It's not an exact number. It's a nominal amount of revenue back to the city anyway on personal property taxes. But 262 home permits annually, personal property and the home, that's about $86,000 a year is what that is. Now, I don't want to mislead that $262,000, we also collected $246,000 of building permit revenue. But our building permits this year are trending down a little bit, not a lot. We had 262 last year, 232 this year. So that's, and I did 2016, 17, 18, and 19 as far as homes are concerned. We've had we're going to have about 786 home permits. So that's an additional minimum of 1,500 people just in the last 4 years alone. That's at two persons per household, and it's probably, little higher than that. So our city's growing rapidly, and we have needs, fire protection, fire, police, roads. We heard one lady get up here and speak, and I actually think our police department does a phenomenal job. I think we're really well resourced in that regard, but she's concerned, you know. So I guess the net of it is we're going to have to keep up with this growing population, you know, that we've got going on right now. And we have basically $35 million of capital projects listed. 11 million of it, 10 to 11 million of it is in the budget over the next, I believe, 5 years. And then 26 million of it right now is unfunded. We don't even know where we're going to get the money for it. You know, other than we're going to have to come to the residents of the city and ask for probably a sales tax increase. Right now, we charge 1% sales tax. So I did a little bit different analysis. 10 cities that are relatively the same size of Bella Vista across the state of Arkansas. I did 5 cities above, 5 cities below. And I equated each of those cities' sales tax at 1%, just like Bella Vista. Some of them charge 2.5%, some 2.25%, some 2%, 1.5%. One city charged 0.75%. Don't understand that, but we're at 1%. So if you take and you equalize all of them to 1%, Bella Vista collects $2 million less than the next closest city to Bella Vista. You know, so again, no commercial growth. So whenever I think about this water system, and granted, I know it's complicated. I know we're looking out into the future. We have immediate needs. You heard the mayor state his position, pretty clear where he stands on this whole thing. I think he's looking more immediate. I'm looking future. So out here on the west side, which is where I live, 279 corridor, and then you also have the little spur, whatever you want to call it, all the way out on the west side. That's out, you know, by where the gun range is, or the old stump, one of the old stump dumps. So we have the bypass going around, looping around right now, right? All the people, I say all the people, I don't know what the number is, but I could tell you, I used to come in to Bella Vista, Bentonville, come into the Walmart and Jane, then come down 71, hit all the stoplights into town. And admittedly, now what I do is I go Glasgow, because I live over by Scottsdale Golf Course. I go Glasgow to the Highland Gate. I make a right on 279. I shoot right out to Hiwassee in the bypass, and I boogie right on into Bentonville. And I'm just as guilty as anybody. That's where I spend a lot of my money, is in Bentonville. And guess what? Bentonville charges us 2%. We just charge 1%. So they charge us an extra percent for the privilege of me spending my money there, or you. And then you've got all the way out on the west side where everybody lives out around Highlands Golf Course. Well, they shoot right to the bypass right there, and they completely bypass Bella Vista as well. So I'm looking, this 279 corridor, let's just say we give this up. Gravit takes maybe a portion of it. Maybe they don't even take any of it, but let's say they take it. What are they going to do for the development of that 279 corridor? Probably nothing. You know, it would be my guess. They're not going to spend the money doing anything. But that corridor, I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's going to develop. And we need to put some boots on the ground, and we need to figure this thing out. And I'll tell you, like tonight, we don't need to make a decision on this tonight. We can move this down the road to the next city council meeting or the next. There's no reason not to do it. Even if we move it to the next meeting or the meeting after that, from what I understand, our cost to pay Centerton for the cost they've incurred for their legal fees and things like that is going to remain the same. So what I would like to do is table this, and I know there are a couple city council members that would like to spend a little more time on this and get out and talk to people, some of these landowners maybe, possibly, and again, I don't know who all to talk to exactly, but to continue to figure this out and see if that we can make this a viable plan for us. Because, you know, once this whole thing goes through all the way from the state line, all the way into Bentonville, everybody's going to be blowing by us on that side, including our own residents. Where are we going to get the sales and use tax revenue that we need in order to pay for these infrastructure improvements and upgrades that we need? And you know, there's going to be other things that are going to come on the list as well. And I'm, like Linda stated, I'm just really, you know, nervous about getting totally boxed in. We do have a lot of properties in Bella Vista right now that can be developed, something be done with them. We don't own them. We don't have anything to do with them. Cooper does. I think I've developed a pretty good relationship with Cooper. According to the gentleman that I talked to, It isn't that they don't want to develop them. Supposedly, they don't really have people come in here that are serious that want to develop them. I don't know. But we do have a lot of empty properties right now. It's kind of a sad situation. I don't get it with as many residents as we have here. Another thing that bothers me is we have a comprehensive plan 2040 that we voted to have done for us by a consultant up in Kansas City, and it was supposed to be delivered to us in a year, and now it's 2 years, and I still haven't seen it. You know, and I want to see what that looks like. So I feel like we're making a decision here, just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. This thing could fit into a bigger picture somewhere for us, and we don't really understand it right now. You know, we're talking about funding a Mercy Way Bridge. Well, that's going to cost a lot more money than the water department is. You know, to tear that down and build a new one, put a bike lane across it, a walkway across it. I don't know what the return on that is, but we're still pursuing that. Is that the right thing to do? Is that the wrong thing to do? I'm not really sure, because I
He said-
had an overarching plan presented to me so I can even look at it and determine whether it makes sense or not. So to make a decision on this tonight just doesn't feel like the right thing to do. I could tell you I won't vote for it. I think we need to continue to work at it. And I'll say, I mean, you know, in the city, we've added head count. I think it's necessary head count, you know, to support our staff attorney, to support our financial person, to support our communications manager, to support our IT department. And the one position we let go is our economic development manager. We hadn't got a lot done in the 2 years necessarily that he was there, but he's been gathering a lot of great information, out talking to people for us. I don't know what could have developed or what could have unfolded there. We'll never know now. But I'm for moving forward with this right now, unless something over the next couple months convinces me differently. And you know what? I'll be straight up honest. I'm not going to be bullheaded about this, and I'm not going to vote to buy a water department that I don't think we need at the end of the day. But I just don't think really everything has been scrubbed as thoroughly as it needs to be to figure it out.
Okay, let me just add a comment about the economic development person. We hired him and had him for 2 years. He did do a very, very good job. He got lots of business that approached us. The problem is that the person who owns all the developable flat land is one person. And we have had brokers for 3 hotels approach us. And we send them down to CCI, and we never hear from them again. So I want to be clear that Travis did do an excellent job for us, but he ran into the wall every time, and he was frustrated. I had no trouble tabling this, but we needed to discuss it so that all of you, and hopefully everybody who's watching, can participate in this discussion with us as well, so that we can find a path that is either going to take us to, okay, I think we can do this, this, and this, but not that, because frankly, we've been trying to do it alone. And we can't do it alone because at the end of the day, we would probably have to come to you and ask you for help on the financial side. So we've got to open up the discussion, and this was a good place to start. So thanks for your input. Steve, do you have anything?
I'm interested in hearing from Larry. I think I look to Larry as somebody who's got a lot of time invested in this proposition and has expertise in the field of water that is useful to the council. So I'd be interested in hearing from
Okay,
Larry.
just so everybody knows, Larry Wilms was hired by the city before he came on council to help us work our way through the labyrinth of rules, regulations, applications, as well as having to hire some attorneys to help us as well, who knows the land of water systems much better than we do. Larry is a professional engineer. He's been in water for years, not in hot water, just in water. And he actually moved here at one point because you were going to run the POA water, and you did for a period of time.
Spent $7 million.
Right. So, Larry, do you want to weigh in?
I guess I passed out to the councilors, the clerk, the attorney, and the mayor, 3-page narrative. I'd like to touch on a couple of highlights, and I don't mean this in a critical fashion, Mayor, but based on the packet that we got from you, separate from our agenda, the costs are shown there as being about $47,000, but adding additional legal costs, technical services, we're probably up in the range of about 60 to 65 reality-wise is what's been invested to date. That includes the payments to the City of Centerton, our legal services for special counsel during this period, and the technical fees for the technical report that was sent into the Arkansas Department of Health and required by the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission, because not only do you need the approval of the Department of Health for the city to operate a system, you need approval from the ANRC, Arkansas Natural Resources Commission, in order to approve a service area. Well, part of it is we'll be buying a service area from Centerton, about 1,300 acres worth, and about 85 customers currently connected. Is there capability of many more customers along there? Yes, there is, both inside and outside the city of Centerton, or the city of Bella Vista. In addition to that, we need a service area to be able to service other properties besides those in this purchase area we're buying. And that's a gross overlay because there are other areas within the city corporate boundary that can't be served by the POA. And in order to service them, we need to have a water service area approval granting the city permission to give them water. Currently, we've talked about the need for additional sales tax revenue. And that's probably the source of our largest opportunity for increasing revenue. As Mr. Fowler pointed out, we don't get very much revenue from properties. It's not in the cards. The millage rate is too low. The values are there, but the revenue that we get from that source, even if we had 28,000 dwellings rather than 14,000 today, would not generate much revenue. What we need is sales tax revenue from businesses generating sales tax. If you look at other communities, you have fast food places, restaurants, gas stations, hardware stores, clothing stores, coffee venues. All of those things generate sales tax, and they generate a lot of sales tax. And Mr. Fowler pointed out that Paragold, with a 0.75% millage rate or tax rate on their sales tax, is practically double of what Bella Vista is at 1%. So you can see that it's not the percentage. Even if we doubled our rate, we'd only get another $2 million. Not enough to sustain our needs as we grow. There is no definite plan to facilitate growth and development in the city. We've seen the experience of development over the past 20 years of most of the land that has water available, but it's the landowner that controls the cost. The costs are 2 to 3 times or 4 times what the reasonable competitive rates are in other communities, and as a result, that land hasn't developed. You can drive around the city. The fall craft fair property is a prime example. How long has that been sitting there? It has water service, it has sewer service, it can support fire protection, it can do all of those things. It's flat level land. It hasn't been developed. And why is that? Because the cost of the land is about 3 and 4 times what the cost of competitive land with the same facilities are to a prospective developer or prospective enterprise. So what's in this? There are risks and unknowns involved, and some of those are hard to quantify until you pull the trigger and say, we're going to go ahead and do it. And then we walk through the process. The purchase cost for the system, under $300,000. Additional startup costs, $170,000. That's buying the essential equipment and supplies and what to facilitate current staff that have licensing in water operation to operate the system efficiently and effectively. And that does not include a mini excavator that was pointed out at our work session. It's not needed. We have plenty of tractor backhoes that almost every utility uses, and unless you are one of those over 10,000 customer services, you don't have the surplus monies to buy one. The estimated cost of operation and maintenance is projected to be in the red or a deficit based upon projections without any user charge increase to the customers. And that's to the tune of $25,000 to $30,000 a year. About that issue, and discussing that question with the ARML attorneys, the point being is that we don't have to include debt retirement unless it's a revenue bond debt. Clearly that's stated in the overruns. We'll need to infuse by loans or otherwise about $1.5 million to $2.5 million in improvements to do the water main upsizing to increase the delivery capacity for growth, and for a water storage tank to ensure its reliability to the customers not only in the city but in the developing area as well. Ownership of a public water system opens a door to the city to expand water service to existing and future customers along the 279 corridor, going northward and southward, along the US 71 across from Sugar Creek on the west side, and along the north side of County Road 40. The latter two by entering into a separate water purchase agreement with the city of Bentonville. Would we need to extend facilities there? We probably would, in order to connect existing customers who are on private wells, but also to develop the vacant land that is usable there along both of those two corridors. We would be eligible, I believe, for state revolving fund loans, not USDA loans, but I think we would be eligible for loans, not for grants. I don't think I'm in error about that, because the city of the Bella Vista POA has gotten state revolving fund loans, and they're certainly not a rural entity. So I don't know why we would not qualify for the state revolving loan fund. They're low interest rates. They go out 10, 20, and 30 years at your request. The interest rate increases as the time goes on from 1.5% to I think 3%. The city of Centerton water purchase opens the door to the city to have development that's not limited to Cooper-controlled property. It should be readily evident to both our mayor and our councilors alike that Cooper lands have not developed for the past 20 years or more, which in my opinion, because these lands are severely overpriced, and unless they become more affordable and competitive with the other market, they won't develop in the next 20 years. To make the Centerton water purchase successful, all of the city's players will need to pull in the same direction. That means that some of the elected officials need to get on board with the opportunities for land development equating to sales tax producing entities that will significantly improve our city revenue stream down the road. It won't happen overnight. This is not a miracle, one shot does it all, but it is the starting step to improving our ability to develop in the city to generate sales tax revenue. And the sooner that we can expand or add additional customers, the sooner we'll be able to turn from a red deficit to a black and without a loss, and the result being increased sales tax.
Councilmember Wilms, may I interrupt for just a minute? You've created quite a summary of facts and information, and I wanted to hear from you tonight, and I'm appreciating what you've developed and put together here, and I wonder if you and the other council members might entertain the idea at this point that because there's no rush for us to sign up for a purchase of the water acquisition tonight, nor is there a rush for us to rule out that option going forward. If we could, add your notes to the minutes of the meeting for tonight. Allow us time to go over these in detail, make them available to the public so that they would have the opportunity to see it in its complete state. And could we, and this is a question for the rest of the members of the City Council, could we table this for the next meeting? Sure. There will be no additional charges incurred by the city of Centerton between now and the next meeting. I was assured that today by their director of water. So they are not urging us to make a decision tonight. We have time, and I think the case that you're making, and I think the case that I hear Alderman Fowler make, is that we should be very, very careful in unturning every rock on this proposition before we rule it out. And so long as we have time to do that, I'm willing to participate in making sure every rock is turned over before we either decide to move forward with it or against it. So unless you want to proceed with the completion of your notes, and I think you're about halfway through, if there's a more expeditious way for us to handle it tonight, and that would be to table this resolution, I would be willing to move in that direction.
If you wouldn't mind, I would like to cover a couple of more comments I think that are key and critical. On the other side of the coin, the utilities director for Centerton was at our last work session. And one of the points that he made was that if Bella Vista does not purchase this subject water service area, it will be difficult for Centerton Utilities to refuse the same sale of the water system to the city of Gravett. That would mean that Gravett would be serving us. With that perspective, it's highly likely that Gravett would purchase that system. So we would become then the customer for Gravett. The areas in Bella Vista properly needing service will not likely get that service if one of the Senate bills proposed this year gets passed. It didn't pass this year, but that doesn't mean it didn't get out of committee this year, but that doesn't mean it won't come up with the next legislative session. With this likely possibility, the capacity on the Bella Vista end of the system will never increase beyond what it is today, and could be less if they build additional customers on the Gravett land side, which would reduce and compromise our service quality. So I guess I would make a motion that we table decision on this resolution to a future meeting.
Second.
You need to know a date.
If I can make a comment, I know for sure of 2 members of council who will not be here in July for the meeting. So if you're going to table it, it would be best to move it to September.
What happened to August?
August.
Or August, excuse me, I'm sorry.
August.
Okay.
You're on vacation in August.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. Jim, I think you want to say something?
Well,
Yeah.
we need to clarify, there's a motion to table it to a future date.
Right.
You need to specify a date. Do you suggest?
I was going to comment on the ordinance in the first place.
I'm talking to Larry.
Okay, all right.
But
I would
because
go-
there's a motion and a second, which is going to take
We're
precedence.
talking about August?
I would go,
The meeting in August would be the 26th for council, 19th for work session in August. So we would table it to, what, the 26th of August?
you think
To
that's
the-
enough
to the
time?
August regular meeting.
Yeah,
Is that enough time?
I think
Oh,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
Has
okay,
to
so
be.
to the August regular meeting, so,
Which would be the August 26th of my calendar.
Okay.
Okay.
all right.
And does the seconder concur with that modification?
Yes.
Seconded to
Steve?
that?
Okay.
All right. Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I can make my comments just as early now as I can in August. Nobody up here has told anybody what the cost is gonna be. Larry just come up with, between his purchasing a line, putting a bigger line to the edge of town, and building a water tower was 2.5 million? Something like that?
1.5 to 2.5.
Okay. So then you get it right there. The first place we get to go to get extra people on that line to help pay for it is the Leisure Hills Trailer Park. Nobody told us how much it would cost to get it from Rogers Road to Leisure Hills. And there's no guarantee anybody in Leisure Hills is going to jump on that line. I don't think we can force them on that line. We can probably pass an ordinance that says if it changes hands, we can make you get on. But no, it's going to be automatic. And then you look at your pockets. Okay, he talked about the pocket on Highway 71. How many miles is it, even as the bird flies, from Rogers Road to Highway 71 to pick up the handful of businesses that are on Highway 71 across from the movie theater? We have to pay to get the water from point A to point B. And then they have to hook on, which is fine, it's a cost. And I understand if you don't grow as a city, you will die. My problem is, how long are we going to have to subsidize this before we get any close to even? Now, everybody's hoping that we're going to put the line in and the very next day something's going to jump. Everybody's hoping we get that bypass open and things will happen. Well, the bypass to the gun range is still 2.5 years away, and that doesn't take us to the state line. So how many years are we going to have to subsidize it before it starts at least breaking even? And then when it does get bigger, you're going to have to hire a separate water department. And from the very first, I know we need to do this. It is the only thing that makes any kind of real sense as far as helping us in the future. But how long? With everything else we've got on the table, how long can we afford to subsidize it before something happens like we go belly up or all of a sudden we can't move on it because nothing's happening with it? That's my big concern. How long are we going to have to subsidize it before it breaks even? And will it ever? Because you look at all the pockets, the ones that the city annexed when we first got together, 9, 10 of them, you look at all of them, only 2 or 3 have any kind of commercial possibilities at all. You know, the very first one that's closest to the line is Hole in the Wall Cave. That's a 1-person deal and 1 water line. Most of the others are, they're not inaccessible, but you're not going to put a business in the middle of no place when you can't get to it. So we will table this, we'll go on from there, but until somebody at least tells me how long, how good your crystal ball is, how long do we have to carry it before it takes care of itself?
Larry?
And Larry's got an answer, I know he does, but
No,
that's my thing.
only a partial answer, Jim, and that is service along 71 and County Road 40 would be a contract with Bentonville, metered by Bentonville for servicing those. So the line wouldn't run from Rogers Road all the way across town to there.
We don't know that for sure, though.
We do.
Yeah, we
Will they
do.
agree to that on paper? And why aren't they doing it now?
Well, you don't have a water system to extend it now.
Our system's not going to extend it anyhow. Why aren't they, goodness of their heart, doing it on their own?
Well,
Look, these are the kind of things we want to have some time to look into. Jim, I hear exactly what you're saying, I do.
In order to service that, first of all, they would be encroaching into the Bella Vista POA water service area as it's designated today. The POA water service area approved doesn't distinguish between non-POA properties and POA properties. It's a gross boundary. And the proposal that we have applied for with the ANRC is that same virtual boundary, but we would not service POA properties. POA can't service non-POA properties, so it's a match over the top that fills in the holes where they cannot serve. And this is one of those.
And we still have to purchase the line and build it.
We would have to build the line, yes, but with that line, there is existing customers available there. and there's also the availability of vacant land for development. And there's a lot of other land that's vacant, but it's owned by the developer, and it hasn't developed in 20 years.
Well, we've already had that discussion, just like you talk about your fairgrounds. Half of that, almost half of that is dedicated to Gravette Schools if they ever decide to do it.
Gravette Schools withdrew.
Now, they had a 10-year thing, they talked about it at 5, they got a couple years left
But
before they're officially out.
I thought they
No,
acted,
they
they
gave it
acted
up.
They had
upon
a
it.
10-year program, they started messing with it.
They chose,
They chose,
Larry.
they went to go somewhere else, didn't they?
Yeah, Larry, they, after the millage election failed, then Gravette gave up the land and is working with Cooper to get similar land but closer to the city of Gravette.
A different,
Right,
different location. But this piece is out. I mean,
as far as I know.
You've got the motion and second to table
Okay, so we have a motion
to the August meeting.
to table until the August meeting. Shall we hold off on the discussion and keep it going then? Until we get a good feel for this thing?
Okay, you ready for a vote?
Everybody ready? Okay, where you go.
Okay. Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
yes,
Wozniak,
No.
Flynn,
Abstain.
and Lloyd.
Yes.
Okay, so it carries 4-1-1.
Okay, good discussion. Thank you very much. We have the new one that we added this evening. Thanks. Approving the Bella Vista Advertising and Promotion Commission's appointment of Jane Lowe as an at-large commissioner for the unexpired term of the position vacated by Paula Sanders. Is there any discussion at all?
No, I'd just like to say that I am the chairman of the Bella Vista, Discover Bella Vista is actually what we are called, but we're the Advertising Promotion Commission for Bella Vista. And our original chairperson, Paula Sanders, whenever Travis left the city, he was kind of a quasi, I'm going to call it director, maybe, that helped kind of guide us along as we were setting up the AMP and putting everything together. And it was a lot of work. When he left, we needed someone to fill his position. So Paula resigned her position on the commission, and she's working part-time for us as the director of the AMP of Discover Bella Vista. So that left us with an open seat. And we received, I believe, 5 or 6 applications. We interviewed 2 people, and we landed on Jane Lowe. She has a wealth of experience and the background of, situations like an AMP commission, if you will, working for various cities. Really great personality. I think she'll be good working within the community and helping us out. So that's who we landed on, and that's who we nominated.
I agree. Any other comments?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Anybody else before we do it? Okay, Wayne.
All right. Councilmember Lloyd,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke.
Yes.
Carried 6-0.
Okay, meetings and announcements. The next city council work session will be Monday, July 15th at 5:30 here in the court building. The next regular meeting of the city council will be Monday, July 22nd at 6:30 here in the court building. The planning commission work session will be this Thursday, June 27th at 4:30 p.m. in the court building. The planning commission regular meeting will be July the 8th at 6:30 here in the in the Bella Vista conference room. The Board of Zoning Adjustment, if required, will be July 16th at 5:30 p.m. here in the court. And the Board of Construction Appeals, if required, will be August the 13th in the Bella Vista Court Building. And before we part ways, Councilmember Burke, I believe you would like to say something?
Mayor Christie, thank you. Just wanted to close the meeting tonight with perhaps the start of a new practice, close on a positive note. And tonight, I'm thinking of volunteerism in Bella Vista and how important a part of the history of Bella Vista that volunteerism has been, and how strong it is today that makes our community such a great place. Earlier this month, the Bella Vista Foundation completed the 2019 Cooper Communities Northwest Arkansas Charity Classic Golf Tournament. And we had 127 professional golfers come and stay. Many of them stayed in Bella Vista. The winner of the tournament this year set a course record at the country club of 9 under par, shot a 63. And I think the part of the tournament that is most interesting to me and that I'm proudest of is that over 200 Bella Vista residents volunteered to make that event happen. In doing so, they had a charity auction that raised over $12,000. All of those charity monies will go to local charities, Bella Vista charities. When I say local, I mean it's our charities. So that's just an example of something really, really neat that happens in our town every year, hopefully. And it happened earlier this month, and just wanted to kind of give a shout out of recognition to the Bella Vista Foundation for their leadership in that particular event.
Thank you. No, they did a great job, and I want to let you know that we had a meeting earlier today talking about next year. So we're already getting on the bandwagon planning. Thank you for hanging in with us. It was a long meeting. I would encourage you to think about what you heard this evening, especially about the water purchase. And if you have some thoughts, please contact one of us up here so that we can be sure to have your voice on the table. Again, my thanks. Good night. Safe home.
$1